Good morning, everyone. Again, this is Mel Clemente. I work with Qdabra software. I've been here for more than 7 years now and loving my job ever since, never getting tired here. I'm excited to present to you today's topic for our weekly webinar. Today, we'll talk about InfoPath Forms and the Formotus app for mobile devices. I hope you all are excited as I am. And this is actually a weekly thing that we do. We do this for free just because we want to share our knowledge, our love for InfoPath, and how we deal with InfoPath forms in a daily basis. Spread the love, so to speak. So I hope everybody's ready. I've started recording for those who are not able to attend today. We're uploading these videos to our YouTube channel for the sake of anyone who can't attend this. All right, so I think we're ready to start. Let's move on to my next slide, InfoPath Forms and the Formotus app for mobile devices. So I'd like to show you how you can optimize your forms for your mobile devices. To be specific, your tablet or your iPhone, any iOS device, Android device, or even your Windows 8 device. Any of those kind of devices, the Formotus app will work on those. Um, um, Also, Formotus allows you to fill out forms offline and then submit it whenever you come online. Maybe you want to submit your forms to a SharePoint site or maybe to a web service or what have you. But in general, the Formotus app is meant for those who go out and about in a field, for example, without connection, right? They want to be able to fill out these forms while they are out and about, like I said. And then whenever they go online, they and are ready to submit their form, they just, on a click of a button, go ahead and do that. And they'll also show you sample forms with some of their custom controls that make your lives easier by just using the built-in camera in your devices or the geolocation, those kind of things that detects where you took a picture or where your current location is and so on. And there's also a signature control that allows you to sign in a form. All right, so these are some helpful points that Formotus promotes in their website. They come with a slogan, replace paper forms with mobile apps. So today you're here because I know you love InfoPath as much as I do. And the main reason being moving from paper forms into electronic forms, right? Being able to fill out forms in the browser or in the filler. And now it actually is more exciting now that Formotus provides the ability for users to fill out InfoPath forms, to be specific, in a mobile device. And so you've got control. You can design your forms even without any knowledge of programming or coding, right? And through the use of Formotus dashboard, they allow you to deploy forms in their site, and these updates any form that's currently deployed out there to the users real time. And I'll show you the dashboard later to get a better understanding of how things work there. Capture, I've mentioned the signature custom controls and photos that make use of your device's built-in camera. And connectivity is when your users go online, again, they are able to submit data to the SharePoint library or any web services. And Formotus is emphasizing that they do not store your data. Okay, so how does Formotus actually work? All right, so again, you don't need any knowledge in programming. You use a designer. In this case, we use the InfoPath designer, which all of you have already seen at least and are familiar using. And so that's I guess a platform that you use to create your rich forms, right? And then later on turn them into a mobile enabled forms. And then, like I mentioned before, it works across your iOS or Windows and Android devices. Okay. And I know that people are more excited to see actual stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to show you the dashboard, the Formotus dashboard. I'm logged in as myself here using my organization's login, which I'm a member of. I'm headed to the forms page here, and you can see that currently we only have 3 forms um, up, uploaded or published up there. So let's see. It comes with 2 default, if I'm not mistaken. These 2 forms or sample forms from Formotus that they provide you just for starters, right? And you can, of course, create your or upload your own custom form. And I clicked on that. It allows you to pick between the built-in forms, their own sample forms, play around with that, maybe just get the hang of it, and pick from your own custom form. And if you select that option to upload your own, you can either upload from your local machine or even upload from a SharePoint site. You just enter your form, your SharePoint site here, this URL, and then your login credentials, so that whenever users open the form first time, of course they need to be connected the first time at least to download that form, and then they enter their credentials. They won't be prompted when they go out and about. So this is where they store the credentials. You can, if I'm not mistaken, you can even create a generic like a global account that everyone can use to connect. Here you can pick which platform you want your form to support, Android, iOS, or Windows 8. You can pick everything. And this one, a workflow form, I haven't explored on that much, but I'm assuming, no, I don't want, I don't want to assume and give you false information, but sorry, I haven't tried that myself yet. So today, I guess I will focus on uploading from a SharePoint library, since we all want to integrate at least our form to something, right, to somewhere. Um, and I'm not going to upload a brand new form. Instead, I'll show you what we currently have um, developed for one of our customers here. This is called the service report form. So whenever I have changes to the form, I just go here in the dashboard and upload a new version, just like so. So I click upload, and this is already set up. So this is our site here. I just point the location of my InfoPath form template, and I previously entered my username and my password. Not sure if or why they're not showing up there, but maybe just for security purposes, they hide that the next time. But it's deployed there. Okay, and now after uploading, you pick which users you want to deploy the form to. So there's a deploy link over here. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, but just to give you an idea how things work in the dashboard side, the admin side, how are your users even able to see any forms that you build for them, right? So this one, we'll see that the service report form is currently deployed to two users. So these are my 2 users that are currently using the form, and I can add more to that. I just pick the service report form up here and then select the user here, and I don't see any other user, because I guess I only have 2 users in this specific organization. And let me see. All right. So this safety inspection form is currently deployed to only 1 user, so I'm allowed to pick Kayla if I want her to see that form as well. So that's that, the dashboard side. I want to show you some sample forms. So here I have this app player. So it serves as a simulator for my Android device. My Android device is connected to this app player. So I've already installed the Formotus Pro app, which I downloaded from the Play Store, Google Play Store, and clicking on that. And the first thing that you're gonna get is the prompt to your login credentials. So that's my credentials right there. I log in, and so any form that's deployed to me by my admin, which is again configured in the dashboard, I can see here. So it's not only these forms I can see, I also have another company I'm subscribed under, which is my own Qdabra software. That's why I'm seeing more than just those currently deployed to me. Right. So this is the service report that we built for the specific customer, McLean. Um, so this is specifically laid out for a tablet use. That's why it's wider. All right. But if you want your form to be mostly used in on an iPhone or let's say a Samsung phone, right? You want this a little bit narrower layout wise. Otherwise, I have this wider layout here. So, okay, drop downs. Let's start with drop downs. They will look as if you're gonna imagine the screen as if we're using the tablet. All right. And so whenever you click on a drop down, it provides you the options. This is actually coming from a secondary XML data source, so they actually work. XML data sources are supported in Formotus, so it lists all the service technicians available in the team, and it actually auto populates the ID there whenever depending on whoever I selected, and it changes as soon as I select the service tech. All right. So those are rules, and they do fire without issues. In that case, this is again a drop down shift, or shift will be night or day. For date pickers, again, it's using your stock phone's date picker. So this is how it looks in the Samsung Galaxy tab. I think for iPhones, you actually scroll right, and you can scroll endlessly and get to the date that you want. But for Android devices, they make use of these plus and minus icons for the dates. So whatever your device has, that's what's gonna be used by the form in the Formotus app. All right, so these are just normal text boxes for you to fill out. Um, Again, some more drop downs, some tips here with any selection. Since this is something like an audit form, we decided to make use of radio buttons for auditing purposes. So we mark them as good, fair, poor, or replace, and even added visuals by showing colors there, green for good, and so on. At first, we looked at making these drop downs, but based from testing, there are some lags when selecting values in the drop downs just because there is something special going on behind the scenes in this form, and I'll show you that in the designer later on. To those of you who are already designing InfoPath, um, you might be thinking this is a repeating group, all right? Because we've got components, notes, and then the audit. Yes, they are repeating group, but behind the scenes, there is an equivalent non-repeating field for each of these repeating nodes. And that is because we're also mapping the data that gets submitted. Aside from submitting to the libraries, the SharePoint library, this form, we also submit to a separate SharePoint list, just the data that we want. And that is all possible. Of course, every application, every software has their own limitations. And um, currently, Formotus doesn't support mapping repeating data straight to a list. And we found workarounds for that. Again, that's one of the limitations today, but I heard that they are working on that. But in the meantime, we've come up with a workaround, which I'll show you really soon later on. This is a camera um, this is an example of a camera control. It's actually an annotation control in that aside from attaching an image or taking a picture, you can also write a markup in that image. So I can either click on this camera icon to launch my phone's camera, take a new image, for example, maybe of the axle in this case, right? But I don't want to do that. It's going to open my webcam, which I'm using in my laptop. You're going to see me getting all nervous and stuff. So let me just attach an existing image. Um, you're going to see that it's asking which application I want to open that with, which is that's a behavior in an Android device. I'm just going to take a picture that I took recently. So that's attached there. And if I click on this pencil icon, I can write on the image. And maybe users want to sign or just want to scribble on something. And when I go back, it's going to get saved there. All right, and I can delete that and or change it if I want. Um, Once I delete that, and of course this is repeating, so I can add another image separately for the engine, right? Um, this one is just something that I added in InfoPath. This is not part of the Formotus Custom Controls. I'm doing this if I just want to hide that control because, as you can see, it's already occupying my form there. Um, so that is meant to just hide that row, especially if I don't have any image there. But I can also just delete it from the bin icon. And you get the idea there. You can add notes. Let's see. So another set of repeating data, which allows me to select which type and how many hours. Down below, you'll see some calculation. If I add in 5 hours here, it's going to add up to the service. Um, Service calculation, total hours of 5. If I add another, let's say this one's for travel, going to add 2 hours. So it's going to add up to just the travel total hours of 7, and so on. And this add icon is actually a custom widget, which I'll talk about later as well. It allows me to add more rows if I need more. But by default, the designer, who's myself, is providing only 10 rows by default. And again, I can add as much as I want, but there's a limit to that. I think I'm limiting only to 20 or 30 rows currently. Let's see. This part is a little interesting. Aside from the same control that allows me to add an image and write on it, there's this quick notes section which I want to show you that it has a little bug right now. I'll show another form where we've got this working, where we have this working, but right now there's a bug. The default, the behavior is that once I select a quick note in there, it's going to set this, it's going to add that to my notes here automatically. And that's not firing right away currently. Not till I do something else in the form, such as click on this plus icon, that's when things things get set. And as you noticed, I first select needs replace and then selected monitor closely. And so those two selections were added there. But now if I do another one for this, let's say urgent, so again, it didn't auto-populate as just like I wanted, but if I add another row, then it gets set. So that's a bug that I'm going to hunt down and fix. And so far, when it comes to hunting bugs, I've been so far successful trying to find workarounds. And again, an application software is not, it's not going to be a perfect application unless you find at least just a little bug there. So this is the signature control. If I click on here or click on this pencil icon, it allows me to sign the form before I could submit. Okay, let's say I'm signing and I'm using my trackpad to do this, and I go back and that signature is going to get saved there. Okay, so notice this section down here. There's actually that square, and if I do that, there's some fields showing. I think this only happens in an Android device. It doesn't happen in an iPhone, but there is a reason for this, which I'll show later. I'm just taking notes in my head. I have a lot of stuff to show later, but yeah. Um, And there's a submit button. It submits to a SharePoint library, and like I said, also submits to a separate SharePoint list, which I'll show today. We have this SharePoint library. So we've promoted a bunch of columns. There's actually a lot of columns promoted here. And again, that is because we want to map those supposedly repeating data to a separate list. And those are all happening via workflow. Okay. All right. And this is the list that we're submitting data to. So there's the description, service type, hours. So each line item gets submitted, creates a separate list item in this list. And let's see, I think I'm going to show you the tips and tricks now. The camouflage technique. So that square section at the very bottom of the form that, when I hover over, tries to show me something when they're actually blank. That's for the camouflage technique. We add those invisible fields on the view to ensure that field-dependent rules fire. And what does that mean? I'm going to show you this in the designer. Let's look at our form in the designer. This is the guy. And don't get intimidated with the data source there. I'm going to talk about that really soon. So these are the invisible camouflage section. So this is the repeating data. So what's happening is that based from my testing, let's see where my core component section is. So here's the component section. Okay, this is the audit section. So what was happening if I didn't have that that invisible repeating table at the bottom? My rules didn't fire here. Like for example, when I click on this camera icon that's supposed to show my camera control, it's not doing what it has to do. It's not showing that. So I needed to add that field into the view here and hide it by removing the borders, making the font, changing the font to white, right? So if we look at borders, there's no borders there. So it's basically there. So I guess the app just wants to see the actual field for rules to fire. I'm not understanding that entirely, why the concept behind that, but at least that's what's making those rules fire instantly, I guess. And this is especially useful when you are using secondary data sources. For example, for form logic, if you're familiar with centralized rules that we keep talking about, and if your form has a secondary XML data source that have rules dependent on them, this is the workaround for rules to fire. Okay, so that's a camouflage technique. So mapping repeating data to SharePoint lists. So this slide deck, this slide is actually busy. I'm sorry. So first, we want to create non-repeating fields. So this is only, again, if you want to map repeating data to a separate SharePoint list, because currently that's being worked on. So here's my repeating group. All right, and I've created non-repeating fields for them. All right, so I've got description 1, description 2, description 3, type 1, and so on. Okay, so if I show you that in the designer, here's that, field services, and I've got a lot. I've got 30 of those. That's fine. That's totally fine, as long as your form can handle it, and based from testing, the form doesn't perform poorly in the browser, neither the Formotus app itself, so we don't find any issues with that currently. So we've got this field service, which is actually the repeating group, and that's what we're displaying on the view right here when I showed you myself entering hours for travel, hours for service, and so on. So that's how you're gonna build your data source. The next one is to add rules to set them. So here we set the non-repeating field service description with its equivalent from the repeating group. So I set description one. I set this description one field to the first row's description value, and I set description 2 with the second row's description value, and so on. I do the same for types, and I do the same for hours. And it's not that hard. You can copy and paste rules, right? And all these are done in my we're really practicing centralized rules technique. So set default values. Here are all my rules that um, run. And let's see. So my submit button, first I'd like to show you my submit button that only has plain and simple, has two rules. One that sets all the values that I want set in the form before it submits, and finally submits itself to SharePoint. So that setting value simply triggers my submit rules. So this one sets my main data source form logic submit to a value such that it's going to run the rules in it, which we're going to take a look at next. The submit, and I'm talking about centralized rules here, centralized logic. So the submit node is actually doing something. First, it sets the form name and then runs the set default values command, which I showed you earlier. That's where all the magic happens when it comes to setting those non-repeating fields with the equivalent repeating values. Okay, and again, it's easy to do this when you're, since InfoPath 2010 onwards, provided copying and pasting rules. And you can actually, if you're knowledgeable with, XML, I guess, fire open the form in the source file in a text editor or something, and do your copying and pasting there, find and replace or what have you. Any method that you find works best for you, it's all just a matter of trial and error, right? And so lastly, once you've set all the values, right, to the value desired, based on your requirements, you promote them to the library so that you can use a SharePoint workflow. You can use them in your SharePoint workflows that will then create the list items in that separate list. Right, so we can see here, this is a screenshot of SharePoint Designer, and we've got some conditions here that SharePoint Designer also allows you to copy and paste. So after doing so, you just need to change the values after. So we'll look at the conditions here. If description one is not empty, of course, you don't want to submit blank rows, right? So you only want to do these if your field is not blank. So if description one is not empty, I want the workflow to create an item in that separate list. And this is uh, by default, SharePoint Designer creates that variable called create in order to make things happen. So in my field services, then once the workflow fires, creates these items with a mapping done. And yeah, I hoped I added a screenshot here of how I'm setting those columns with what. But sorry, I forgot that. But yeah, that's basically how that happens. So again, that's mapping repeating data to a SharePoint list. And if you want more details of that or in-depth instructions or guidance, you can send me an email directly. Um, I'll, and I'll be emailing you files and samples as well. So you're going to get my email address or even email support@qdabra.com. Okay, so for our last tip and trick for the day here, we're going to use default repeating data and custom insert and delete widgets. So you saw the plus and minus icons instead of the stock insert row above, insert row below, or delete, what have you. And we're using that because, again, this form is special. We're mapping and we're, using non-repeating. To hold repeating data and stuff. So of course we need default data for that, just like what you're seeing here in the left screenshot. And if you attended last week's webinar, Jimmy talked about how to copy repeating data from a secondary data source into your form's main data source, one of the cool techniques there is to use default values, just like so. All right, and showing you that behind the scenes, we've got some special ingredient here. This plus icon is basically we're hiding. So let's say we've got 30 rows in here, which I don't want to show everything by default because not every user will fill out all those 30 rows, right? And so we have a conditional formatting in this repeating table to hide if the row number, which is determined by the count of the preceding sibling plus one, um, that's going to be the row number, the current row number. If it's greater than my field service last row value, which is down here, field service last row, as you can see, it's by default set to 10 because by default, I just want to show 10 rows. Okay, so if my row number here is more than 10, then hide it. Okay. So uh, that's how all the other 20 rows are hidden. And if I click on this plus icon, which has a rule that says show next row, I just add 1 to that value. So now I want my field service last row to be 11, and so hide any other rows that is greater than 11, if that makes sense. And the minus sign does just the opposite. And I don't know why I didn't name this the other way around. This is supposed to hide the next row. Um, and I'm actually hiding it in the view, as you can see. I think I haven't gotten that working yet in the app itself. But this one sets the flag node to delete because I don't just want to hide that row. Of course, there might be data in there already filled out by the user. And so when I set that flag to delete here, there are additional rules that run aside from hiding that line. So I blank out the description, blank out type, hours, and anything that you're going to assume has already been filled out by the user. Then lastly, I decrement that field service last row count in order to hide that row. Okay, so that's one special technique there. You can still go by the default widgets, and I actually am going to show you um, how those default widgets look like in the Formotus app. Let's open up this safety inspection form. This comes built in from Formotus. So we see that I've already filled out, or maybe they already filled out. So this form is really interesting. They provided you this icon up top that allows you to switch between a mobile or a tablet versus a phone. If I click on that, it's going to switch me to a less wider view or layout of the form. So then I can fill out this form in my tablet or in my phone, and I can adjust whatever I see fit. Going back to the wider layout. So this is designed in InfoPath, and whatever you design in InfoPath, you can view in your Formotus app. Okay, so what I want to show here is first this quick add thing working. See how that's instant. And let's see if I change it, it just adds up to that. All right, so I just need to get the same concept here, how they ever made that work, something that I am not seeing to make that work in my other form. All right, so this is how the stock widget looks like in the Formotus app. So we add another photo diagram that just inserts a new row, similar to how the insert line before or insert line after stock InfoPath widgets behave. And this one acts as the delete. So if I want to delete that row that I just added, it's going to let me do that by clicking on it. All right, so I think that's it. It also allows you to submit your form in email. And it is one, I believe, again, when your user goes online, they're able to connect to the internet. And of course, emailing also requires requires connection to the internet, right? So when they're ready to do that, they just click on these buttons to email and or upload to the server. Otherwise, if they're still offline, they just I call this, keep filling out this form, and when they go back like so, it's gonna ask you if you want to save your changes, or just discard. If I save changes, it's gonna save a draft right there for me, and I can fill it out, go back to it anytime I want while I'm offline. And again, if I'm ready to submit, I'm connected to the internet, I just hit the submit buttons. Okay, so yeah, that's been what Formotus have in store for us. Why Formotus? I haven't mentioned at I should have mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that Formotus is our partner, and the reason being is it is a wonderful platform, right? Not only again we are InfoPath lovers, not only we can submit to SharePoint now, but we can actually provide that amazing feature to users who want to use their mobile device to fill out forms in our organization. So we decided to partner with Formotus, and so far things are really doing great. And we are recommending Formotus if you want to integrate your forms with mobile devices. And you can go ahead and visit their website. It's www.formotus.com for information about pricing and trials and everything else. And that's it for me. Let me just quickly check if we have questions. I don't see any. And all right, looks like we've got one from Luke. Is wider screen just a copy of main view but have width extended? Exactly. Yes. You can add more to it, right? But it is just the same view copied and adjusted the layout. Okay, got more questions. Doreen, what version of InfoPath and SharePoint is used in your examples? These are InfoPath 2010. SharePoint, that is actually Office 365. So it does work. And it actually works, Formotus works with from InfoPath 2007 onwards. And of course, SharePoint 2000, if I'm not mistaken, 2007 onwards as well. From Gwen, are the forms filler forms or web browser forms? They can be filler forms. They can be either. All right. Um, Actually, I wanted to show this form in the browser, but unfortunately, this Office 365 site browser form services is not enabled. But yeah, it works in the browser. It works in the filler, and the Formotus app is actually not. It doesn't really matter. It's not gonna mind that because the Formotus app doesn't, make use of the InfoPath filler anyway. It has its own platform for that. Okay, I hope I've answered all your questions, and I don't think there is more. Okay, there's one last for Doreen. Does Q rules, etc., work with Formotus? That is a good question. We are trying as much as possible to, make our forms, any of our Formotus forms, Q rules free for due to some limitations. But I think we have a couple key rules forms that have, just the basic commands running in Formotus. I will have to get back to you on that, Doreen, to prove that. Okay. Um, and with all that, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. And I hope to catch you again sometime this year, definitely. And don't miss out the next webinar. All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye bye now.